Hi guys, in this episode of Shri series, we're going to be talking about factorizing quadratic equations, alright? Now before I go any further, I'd like to look at the difference between quadratic and linear equations, alright? Now if you've been looking at my previous videos, you've seen linear equations where you need to solve the value of x. So let me just give you a simple example. Let's say 2x plus 8 equals 16, and we want to find the value of x. We move 8 over there, the sign will change, so that's going to be 2x equals 16 minus 8. 2x is equal to 8 divided by 2, and x is going to be equal to 4. All right, now this, like I said before, is an example of a linear equation. All right, so what happens in a linear equation? You will get only one value of x because you've got x there, you've only got one value of x. That x technically, if I was to zoom a little bit, that x technically is x to the power 1, which means you're going to get only one value of x. So if x is equal to 4, when you put the value of x as 4 in the original equation, that's going to be 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 8 is equal to 16. That will be the only value of x. You're not going to get multiple values. So in a linear equation, you're looking at finding one value of x. All right. Now, what happens in a quadratic equation? All right. So I'm just going to rub this out. In a quadratic equation, just remember you are solving for two values of x. All right. So let me just give you a simple example. When you look at a quadratic equation, okay, all quadratic equations, all right, will be written using this equation, or should I say expression, y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so this is a test for every quadratic equation. All quadratic equations are written in the form y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, and it's important to highlight this really well because that will help you solve questions, or should I say equations involving quadratics. All right. Now, if you look at this expression, y is equal to, or should I say equation, y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, you need to know that you've got two values of x. All right. So x could either be 1, could be 2, could be -1 or -5. So you're going to get two values of x. All right. How do we know that you've got two values of x? Because you've got x squared there. All right. Because you've got x squared, that tells you that you're going to be having two values of x. You have another type of equation called cubic equation, and that's written of the form y is equal to ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. All right, so in a cubic equation you're going to be getting three values of x. All right, but in this situation we're only going to be talking about quadratic equations. Okay, now if you look at your heading, it says factorizing quadratic equations. All right, so what do we mean by that? All right, we understand that it is an equation, so we've got two values of x as written here. All right, what do we mean by factorizing? All right, now if you've been looking at my previous videos, you know that factorization is part of a basic algebraic process. So what the heading tells you is we're solving quadratic equations using a process of factorization. We're going to be using factorization to solve a particular quadratic equation. All right, so with that in mind, let's look at an example. All right, let's look at an example of how we can solve a quadratic equation. In other words, finding two values of x there. All right, so line properly there. All right, so let's look at a simple equation. All right, let's look at a simple equation that we can put here. Say we've got x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. All right, so we've got x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. The first question we need to ask yourself, is that a quadratic equation? Okay, and if you're not sure, it doesn't hurt by writing down the quadratic equation formula, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, for those who are beginning, getting familiar with the quadratic equation, it's always good to write down the formula so in that way you can connect. All right, that will help you. Once you become more confident in solving more quadratic equations, you don't need to do this step. All right, so it's because I'm introducing this topic to you guys, I'm writing it down so it'll help you guys. All right, so we've got ax squared plus bx plus c, and we've got x squared plus 5x plus 6. Obviously, by now we know we need to find two values of x, and we need to ask, is this a quadratic equation? Now you can see that there are parallels between this and that, and therefore this is also a quadratic equation. This is a quadratic equation. Okay, so what do we need to do? All right, how do we solve this question? What are the steps we need to take in order for us to solve quadratic equations? The first thing we need to do is find the value of a, b, and c. All right, so you've got a, you've got b, you've got c. All right, what is my value of a? All right, so if you see here, that is x squared. The coefficient is 1. All right, so a is equal to 1, my b is equal to 5, and my c is equal to 6. All right, so we need to find the value of a, b, and c. A is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, c is equal to 6. And that's why it's always good to write down the equation and the quadratic equation to find the parallels. All right, once you become familiar, like I said, you can mentally work out the values of a, b, and c. All right, so that's the first step. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just highlight in green. That's my first step. Find the values of a, b, and c. What's my second step? My second step is to find the product of a and c. What does that mean? What is my product here? So that's a and c. And what is my a? A is 1. A is equal to 1 and c is equal to 6. So what do we do there? We go 1 times 6, and that's equal to 6. The third step we need to find out, and this is where I'll try to be slow and explain. We need to find the factors of 6 such that when you add or subtract, you're going to get b. All right, so if you look carefully, so I'll just use a different ink color. We know that b is equal to 5. We find out what factors of 6 when you add or subtract is going to give you 5. Now, if you look at your basic maths, what are factors? Factors are numbers which, when you multiply, give you the original number you're looking at. So what factors, when you multiply, will give you 6? And if you see carefully here, you've got 6 and 1 because 6 times 1 is equal to 6. You've got 2 and 3 because 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now, if you look here, when you subtract 6 minus 1, you get 5. You can get 2 plus 3, you get 5. All right. So when you add and subtract, you can get your value of b, which is equal to 5. All right. Now, if you look at the equation, you've got pluses there. So I'm more comfortable using 2, 3 as my factors. I can't use 6, 1 because 6 minus 1, yes, is 5. But because you've got positives here and 6 minus 1 is negative, I tend to use 2 and 3. So my factors, therefore, are 2 and 3 because when I add 2 and 3, I'm going to get b, which is 5. All right. So in a nutshell, what are we doing with number 3? We're getting the factors of 6. When you add or subtract, they will give you 5, which in this case is 2 and 3. All right. Now, let's rearrange this formula. Let's write it down. So I'll just put here. My fourth step is I found out 2 and 3 are my factors. All right. So in that way, we know what we're doing. All right. So what I'll do here is I'll rub this out because by now we know what the values of A are, the values of B are, and what the value of C is. All right. And it's important to, have enough space to solve this. So this is how we approach this question. So we've got x squared plus 5x plus 6. How do we do this? Now, here's a trick. What we need to do is we say x squared and then we put 6 there. So what we've done is we've put the first and we've put the last there. So that's the first thing. Now that's pretty straightforward because it's like me telling you, I want you to put x squared and 6. It's not that hard to do. You just have to make modifications in the middle because like I said, what factors when you add or subtract will give you 5x, and we've established it's 2, 3. So this is how we work that out. So that's x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. So really what I've done is I've just modified 5x to 2x plus 3x. All right. So what I've done is I've put x squared and I've left the 6 there. And then what I'm doing is I'm just used the 2 and 3x and put it there because the other factors when I add will give me 5x. The next thing we need to do now is factorize in pairs. What do I mean by that? We factorize this pair and we factorize this pair. All right, bearing in mind that's equal to 0. Now, by now, we know what factorization is. We've looked at previous videos, so you're familiar with what factorization talks about. So if we were to factorize x squared plus 2x, what is that number or letter that is common? I can see that that is x, and that's x plus 2. Because when I expand, which is the opposite of factorization, that becomes x squared plus 2x. What do we do next? We put a plus there. And then we factorize 3x plus 6. What factors are common? It is 3. And then you put x plus 2 equals 0. Now, if you look at the nice aspect of this type of solving, you will notice that x plus 2 and x plus 2 are the same. So in other words, what's in your bracket has to be exactly the same when you factorize the two pairs. So let's think of this as pair 1 and pair 2. So when you're factorizing pair 1 and pair 2, what happens is what's in the bracket has to be identical. If you get x plus 2, you need to get x plus 2 there. If you get x minus 2, you need to get x minus 2. If you get x plus 2 and then you get x minus 2 in your brackets, there's something wrong in your calculation. All right. So what I've done is I've factorized that. That's x squared plus 2x factorizes to x plus 2. And then 3x plus 2 becomes 3x plus 2 there. All right. So what do we do next? This step is easy because all I'm now going to do is literally factorize. So that's going to be x plus 2. Put that in brackets, because that's both these are in brackets, and then you open the other bracket, which is x plus 3 equals 0. All right, so what I've simply done is I've put x plus 2 brackets, so that's from these two pairs, and then the other one's x plus 3 equals 0. All right, and the next thing is what we refer to as your null factor rule. The word null means 0 and factor rule. So you factorized and you now need to work out the value of x. And what does the null factor rule state? Two things. Because like I said before, you've got two values of x. So the rule states that when you've got two factored expressions equal to 0, you're going to get two values of x. So what does x plus 2, x plus 3 equal to 0 mean? What that tells you is x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. That's exactly what it tells you. All right. And if I simply solve that, that's the same as x is equal to -2 and x is equal to -3. And that tells you we now have two values of x. So I'll just put an asterisk here just to tell you that my two values of x is equal to -2 and x is equal to -3. And what that means is when I put the value of -2, in this equation, that's going to be equal to 0. If I put the value of -3 in the above equation, that will also be equal to 0. All right. So that is how you factorize quadratic equations. All right. We're using a process of factorization to solve the two values of x. All right. So just to summarize, the first thing you need to do is identify the values of a, b, and c, which is from the expression. Find the product of a and c, which is 1 and 6. And then find the factors of 6 such that when you add or subtract will give you b, which is 5. And you pick the one which is apt because 2 and 3 gives you 5 and their pluses here and there. We use that and that becomes x squared and 6. And then you manipulate that and that becomes 2x plus 3x. And you factorize pair 1 and pair 2. And what's in your brackets is x plus 2, x plus 2. And then you're going to get x plus 2, x plus 3 equals 0. And using the null factor rule, x is equal to -2 and x is equal to -3. We're going to be practicing more questions involving positives and negatives, so please stay tuned for more videos. And then we're going to look at the connection between factorizing and expanding, because when you factorize this, when you factorize and you get this, when you expand, you're going to get the original. So stay tuned for the next set of videos. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye now.